Spartans, Joe Sena here, founder of Spartan for Spartan Up podcast. Good news. Sephra, part of our Spartan Up podcast team, interviewed Michael Wardian. Who the hell is he? Go back in the archives. You will see I interviewed him years ago when we did the very off-brand Spartan Cruise that just repulsed me because I saw so many people. Well, anyway, we'll get into that another time. Anyway, go back in the archives, look at that interview. It will blow you away. This guy is an animal. A lot of people are talking about what we're going through is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Actually, it's an ultra marathon being locked in your cages, right? This guy's the king. He just ran 262 miles over 63 hours to set the backyard containment ultra world record. This guy eats up pain and suffering. Anyway, stay tuned. Check out the old interview. Check out this interview. You are going to build some grit and resilience just hanging out with him. Michael Wardian.
Welcome to Spartan Up, the podcast. We are with ultra running legend Mike Wardian, who I actually had the distinct pleasure of meeting you at 3 a.m. on a treadmill on a cruise ship. Tell us what was happening that night. Let's start out there for those.
Yeah.
It's the Spartan Cruise.
Yeah, it was the Spartan Cruise a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I have an affinity for running on treadmills. And I thought, wow, it'd be a cool opportunity to kind of go for a world record for 50 kilometers, so about 31 miles for people that aren't really familiar with the metric system. So it's a little bit longer than a marathon by about 5 miles. Right. And I thought, wow, that could be kind of a cool thing to do on a Saturday night on a cruise ship. Yep. And turned out like I did the entire race or event and got to the end, and I thought I had set a world record. And
Mike.
Yes, sir.
You are how many minutes in here? You've got about, 20 minutes left to break the world record 50K on a treadmill.
Yes, sir.
What do you have to say to the people watching here? Is it easy?
No, but it's awesome.
What got you to this point? Like, is it just perseverance? Is it stubbornness? Is it
I gotta say, it's the Spartan spirit on this ship, man.
It's the Spartan spirit on the ship.
I sent something out on social media saying like, hey, I ran, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, like 3 hours and 6 minutes or something.
Straight, nonstop.
Yeah, nonstop, 3 hours, 6 minutes.
There was a great cadence there, like, you know?
Yeah. It was, and the ship was pretty steady. And then I went to bed for a couple hours. I woke up and there was somebody I think in London that was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But my friend ran about 50 seconds faster. And I was like,
so that's when Joe's like, all right, we'll do it again.
Yeah, well, I said
you said you'll do it again.
Yeah, I was like, hey, we should do it again, and before we get to port. And
totally
normal.
I got a tweet last night from Centurion Running saying like, man, you did great, nice effort. One of our boys ran 3:05.24 or something.
So you missed it by a minute? We landed at 8, so let's wake up like 3 or 4 a.m. and just get it done.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to do it. We got to get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. Because now I feel like a complete phony.
Yeah, so I ran, I think it was around 12 or 14 hours later, I ran another 50K. So
I think that's when I came in and saw you at 3 in the morning. See,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's what we call a party. Like a late night party with Spartan is like 3 a.m. in an exercise room somewhere. That's really what the late night type scene is.
Yeah. It was really a fun way to spend a weekend and really get a good introduction to what Spartan's all about. I mean, it's really about, perseverance, dedication. If you don't make it the first time,
get back on that horse.
Yeah, figure out how to make it the next time, and if you don't, you keep trying until you do.
Well, it's really great. I mean, Spartan has their new trail series, but certainly from just being in this world and the capacity that I have, I understand that the ultra running world is a pretty massive, but also very close-knit organic community, as it seems. And I know you're, for those of you who aren't familiar with the ultra running world, Mike is pretty big legend in that world. So I'd love for you to talk about some of your accomplishments and where you started out and what's been going on for your journey.
It's been crazy. I never expected to be a runner. Like I grew up playing a sport called lacrosse, picked up running kind of just to stay fit. Wanted to do the Boston Marathon. Did that after qualifying, which I didn't know at the time was such a big deal. And then decided I was going to do all the big U.S. marathons. So Chicago, New York, Marine Corps again. And each one I kept getting a little bit faster. And then I went to this seminar at a local running store with a guy named Scotty Mills, who's another prominent figure in the ultra running community. And he told me that there was a race where people ran 50 miles. And I just didn't even believe like it was possible. I was like, that's just not true. And he's like, oh, it's true. And I was like, no, it's not true. And
that's because when I first met Joe, we had the peak races. There's a 500 miler.
Yeah.
And that kind of just like parlays you into this new understanding of baseline.
Yeah.
All right. So you hear about the 50 miler.
Yeah. I hear about this race called the JFK 50 miler.
Where's that?
It's in Hagerstown. It's the oldest 50 miler in the country. And I decided I was going to do it, and I figured
Kennedy's name.
Yeah, well, it was actually a challenge from President Kennedy to people to do more, and how could they?
President.
Yeah,
there
so it was pretty cool. Like,
right.
And so these guys put this race on to kind of say like, wow, can you actually run 50 miles? Or they thought people would probably hike it, but then people started running it, and then they ran it pretty fast. And I figured, based on my marathon times, if you just take my time and double it, like, I should totally win the race.
Yeah, it totally works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so this was in 1997, so quite a while ago. And that's not how it works. You don't just take your marathon time and double it and then all of a sudden win the race. Like, I got my ass kicked by, like, everybody, basically. Like, I finished and I was like, oh, it's going to be a while till I do that again.
Did that motivate you, or did that deter you from the running world?
No, I mean, it motivated me to like that I could do it, but it was like one of those things where it's like, dude, you like overthought what you were capable of. But what's been so cool is just to like have that exposure to ultra, and then from there I did an Ironman because that was like the next thing on my bucket list, and I was like, I'm going to keep doing these things. And then I found a race called, there's a race called Marathon Des Sables, which is a pretty badass race where you carry all your stuff for a week in the desert.
A good friend of the Spartan community, Amy Winters. Yeah, she just finished it.
Yeah.
The first woman with a prosthetic to... Oh, yeah, Sir Ray Pines. Yeah, and they've both been on the podcast. So
yeah,
that sounds like...
And
it's kind of like Burning Man of the ultra. It's like self-supported.
Yes.
Through the desert.
Self-supported.
Yeah, tell us more about it.
So Marathon Des Sables, 7-day, 6 running stage, ultra marathon that's 250 kilometers. So around 150 miles or so.
And how hot is it?
It gets most days it's between 90 into 120 degrees or so. So you're out in the Sahara desert, you're running over sand dunes.
Where do you get more water?
So you get issued 9 liters of water a day, and that's the only thing provided for you each day. So everything else you have to bring. So your food, your clothing, your sleeping, they provide tents.
Got it.
So basically, yeah, you're carrying like if you're really, really dialed in, I think you can have a 6 kilo bag.
Yeah. Is that like Vision Quest, like you're seeing mirages?
You are seeing a little bit of stuff for sure. Yeah. Especially if you're trying to be super competitive, you're basically you have to have 2,000 calories for each day. Right. But you're burning, upwards of 6,000 or 7,000. So you're always in like calorie deficit. And so, yeah, it gets pretty intense.
So how'd it go for you? So you're there.
So my first time was in 2000, and I finished 25th overall and first American, and that's when I was like, wow, I have some talent at this. Like,
how many people do the race?
About 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, it was really a kind of a turning point for me. Like, wow, if I really focused on this, I could be kind of good at it. And then from there, I went to India and ran a race called the Himalayan 100-mile stage race and won that. And then I decided to try to really focus on some road marathons. So I brought my marathon time down from around 2:30 to 2:17:49. So that's...
Can you translate that into miles?
So that's going from around 5:40 pace per mile to like 5:16 per mile pace, which qualified me for the Olympic trials. So I'm a 3-time Olympic trials qualifier, 8-time 100K Team USA member with a 2011 silver medal in the 100K World Championships, 2 times bronze medalist in the 50K World Championships. And then I've done one of the things recently that people have found really interesting about me is I've done
7 marathons.
Yeah,
I love that one.
yeah. So in 2000,
777.
yeah, 777. So in 2017, I did.
Oh, you did it in 2017, so another 7.
Yeah, so I did it twice actually. So I did I joke with my wife about this. It's like, how many times do you do like a once in a lifetime thing twice? Like, if anyone's not familiar with it, it's called the World Marathon Challenge, and it's this thing that just blew my mind when I heard about it. Which, that's a funny story in itself, because I heard about it while I was doing a race in the North Pole. So I just won the North Pole Marathon in 2014. And my friend, this guy, Richard Donovan, said, I have this idea to do 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And I was just like,
Awesome.
I was kind of like the same thing as like the 50 miler. I was like, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, dude, you can do it. And I was like, no, it's not possible. Like, how do you get from one continent to the other continent and then run and then get back on the plane and then make it to the next continent? He's like, I'm going to do it. And I was like, okay, I want to do it.
What is the route that you take? Which countries do you go? So where do you?
So it changes each year, but what the route that I did it in 2017, we did every time this guy Richard Donovan that puts it on. It's called the World Marathon Challenge, and it always starts in Antarctica because that's the one that's most weather dependent. So you wouldn't want to come there on the last day or like third day, and then they have like really bad conditions and you can't get the plane in, and then the time runs out, right? So you always start in Antarctica. And what's crazy about it is you start running, and it's like a 10K loop, and they send a plane as the race starts. And so the plane takes like 5.5 hours to get there. From the first time we did it was from Punta Arenas, and the second time I did it this year in 2019, it was from Cape Town, but it's still about the same transit to Antarctica. And as you're running, they can stop the race at any time if there's bad weather, and then you just start again the next day or the next weather window. So you're going around running like 10K, like, can I keep going? Okay, cool. And then you just keep going and you keep running until you finish.
What an amazing world to be a part of.
Yeah, it's insane. So in 2017, the route was Antarctica, Punta Arenas, and then we went to Madrid, Marrakesh. From there, we went to Dubai, and then we finished in Sydney, Australia.
How many other people are with you?
So the first time I did it in 2017, there were around 30 people, and in 2019, when I did it, there were 55 people.
All right, so let's go take a break real quick. We'll go run to like 3 continents, maybe. We'll come back to you, Jen.
Sounds good.
All right.
Hey, Spartans, Johnny Waite here. I want to tell you about something incredible that the Spartan Up podcast team has put together during this extraordinary time the whole world is going through, together but apart. Every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we're taking over the Spartan Zoom channel for an hour of extraordinary content, bringing you past guests from our podcast and other amazing people we've drawn into our community over the years, from healthcare, from fitness, from sports, from entertainment, from business. And what they're doing is giving you very good sound advice and encouragement that's going to help us come through this time healthy, happy, and more importantly, ready to take on the world when it opens up for business again. So if you want to join us, and you do, every day from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, go to wherever you get your information about Spartan Up, Instagram, Twitter. You'll get the Zoom meeting ID. Come join us. It's direct interaction with incredible experts from all over the world. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be here as long as this goes on, which hopefully isn't too much longer, but as long as it does, be with us.
You've certainly accomplished a lot, and I know from reading your bio, that's just a mere fraction of them. I mean, like fastest Leadville time, fastest, I mean, all these classic races, just awesome. But like,
Thank you.
Maybe you can share with us what one of your hardest races was, right? And what that challenge looks like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think speaking of that, I mean, we all have things that come up, and that's the cool thing about racing is like you could be as fit as you ever were, and you could have something happen, and then all of a sudden, you're in a matter of like, how am I ever going to finish this? Like, this isn't gonna work. It's funny. I was telling you I had one at Marathon Des Sables also in 2009. I finished 6th overall, and I really wanted to like be the first non-Moroccan or Jordanian to be on the podium. And so in 2010, I came back and was like really focused and like dedicated, and I like kind of dialed my training to be like as fit as I'd ever been, and like really, really like.
What does that look like, that training for you?
It was actually a lot of marathons that I did. I ran a lot of marathons, and then I did a lot of marathons with a pack on. So like getting used to what the weight's going to feel like. And then also like not making the marathons hard. So like not taking water. So I was like dehydrated, or like staying up until like 2:00 in the morning the night before, a 5 a.m. wake up, so that like you're not fresh going into the race, but still trying to like race at the front and win. And
what kind of nutrition do you like?
So I would actually like barely do any nutrition at all, just so I would get bonky.
Just
also
your body,
yeah. So like and then I actually wore like a singlet without any protection on my shoulders, so that I would get chafed, and like all this like just
the masochist marathon.
Yeah. And people are just like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, it's going to pay off. And so like I was super ready. I went, and I was running with the front runners. And I'm in the lead through like, it's again, the Marathon Des Sables, 7 days, 6 days of running. And I'd gone through, it's basically you do a shorter stage, which is like 18 to 20 miles, kind of a medium stage, which is like 20 to 24 miles, but maybe it's got some dunes in it. You got another kind of similar, like 20 to 25 mile day. And then you have what's called the long day, which is like anywhere from 50 miles to like 100K or 62 miles.
Is it flat out there? Or
no.
What are the dunes? What's it like running in sand? Like hot sand?
It's hot and slow.
Any animal life? Insects, snakes,
yeah,
scorpions?
Insects, snakes, lots of scorpions.
They become your spirit animals?
There is, I guess, some of that. But what happened was there was a bug going around the camp, and when there's like 1,000 people and you're kind of all in the same small area, like if somebody
like
gets and you're in a tent with like 8 other people, and it's everybody's all up in each other's stuff, it's like it's very easy to pick up something. And I did right in the middle of the long day, and so like I'm really sick to my stomach, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to finish. Like I'm just up the whole night, just going to the bathroom and like getting more and more dehydrated. And I'm just thinking like, there's no way I'm going to make this. And I go to my friend Jay, who's like Jay Batchin, who's the coordinator for the US team. And I'm like, dude, do you have any like Cipro or anything? Which, like is something that you can take.
Antibiotic.
Yeah. But it's like napalm for your stomach. Like, the one drawback of that is that it makes your tendons weak, and I'd been having like some Achilles like tightness. Oof. And so it's like, so it's like, do you take this and be able to run the race or risk like blowing out your Achilles? And so you're like trying to do this calculus in your head. And so then I take it, because I'm like, well, this is my one chance. Like I might never be in this position again to be on the podium and, have a chance to represent the US and this is my time. But
Cipro for America.
Yeah. So like I take the drugs. I'm ready to go. But the problem is it's got like a short shelf life. Like the half life on it's like 4.5 hours, and we didn't have any more, and I didn't have any to take with me. So like the race director's like famous for like giving these long like speeches before the event, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, my stomach's like just in like all kind of just still like feeling like junk, and he's like talking. I'm like, just please start the race. I only have 4 hours. It's gonna take like 3 hours and 30 minutes. Like every minute you talk is one less minute. Yeah. And so anyhow, so I like start the race and I finish with like, and then of course, like I make it. And, you know, after that day, the marathon day, it's like basically like a ceremonial, like you just kind of, everybody like high fives everyone. And it's kind of like the Tour de France on the last day. Like once the ranks are established, no one really tries to beat anyone. And so I, you know, end up on the podium. And how'd you
finish?
I did great, man. It was like perfect. I ended up third.
Nice.
The first time any like North American had been on the podium. And
wow. How long has that race been running?
It's really old. I feel like it's like 1986 or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's mostly it's a lot of French people do it, and then people from all around the world now. But the U.S. contingent is usually around 40 or 50 people, and I feel like it's grown over the years. Now it's probably around 1,500 people, and it's part of the Ultra Trail World Tour at this point. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's like one of those life-altering experiences. It's like, when you come out the other side of that, you're not the same person you were when you went in, and those are always special.
So you come back to the real world, right? We come out of the marathon mode, and life re-entry is pretty easy back to, you know, your work life.
Yeah. So in case people don't know, I'm like an international ship broker. So I would deal in U.S. and foreign flag ocean-going vessels carrying humanitarian food aid. So it's a pretty dynamic, fluid business. And I get back after being in the desert for like 13 or 14 days. And I'm like, okay, sweet. You know, I'll do a couple emails and, you know, talk to some people, you know, just kind of like you do. And I get a couple calls from some of my friends. They're like, hey, man, your ship got hijacked. And I'm like, come on, dude, you're just messing with me because I've been gone for a week or two. You know, that's not very funny. Like it's 2011 or 2012. Actually, I think it was 2010. Yeah, exactly. But it was. I was actually close to April.
Really?
Yeah, so I was like, come on, dude, it's not funny. And then he was like, no, turn on CNN. So I turned on CNN, and there's a ship called the Maersk Alabama that they made a movie about with Tom Hanks called Captain Phillips. And that ship was carrying the humanitarian food aid cargo that I had booked for Somalia, actually. So the Somali pirates hijacked a ship carrying food aid to Somalia, which was unfortunate. So maybe it got
to where it was going after all.
It definitely got to Somalia, but yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the way that we wanted it to get there. But yeah, so that was one of those things where you're like, okay, put on my work hat, you know, turn around backwards and roll your sleeves up and figure out what you need to do. And
so it seems like in business and in your athletics, right? It's kind of that same parable of being able to overcome obstacles and deal with discomfort and figure it out.
The cool thing about doing these kind of events that we do, especially like events that kind of stress you in ways that you're uncomfortable, is like after you've gone through that experience, you can apply that to so many other things. And that's what I think is so cool about the Spartan stuff. Like, I'm not terribly awesome at it, but like I really enjoy like not being awesome at something, and like each time you do it, you have a chance to like be a little bit better and a little bit better. And I feel like that's in life. Like all of us we don't come out like shaped as who we are. We like grow through these events that we have over the course of our life. And so like there's always something positive that you can get from almost any experience. Like as terrible as like that was, it was like I know a lot about security now, and like how and there's principles of that can apply to other things. And I think using like that ability to be able to like stay up and persevere and overcome is something like that I use in my running and training. But I also use that, like this morning I was up at like 4:00 this morning because I'm working on East Coast time so that I could get offers in before I came to do all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, fine. I just have it. Yeah. It's like, fine. I need to do it. I'm going to do it. And so like you find a way.
You do find a way. I mean, 7:30 a.m. here in Spartan's like midday. You know what I mean? So I think those are 3 great takeaways, honestly. Like, get comfortable being uncomfortable, always keep growing, and learn lessons from adversity, right?
Right. And be able to, I think one of the cool things is be able to take aspects of one part of your life and be able to apply it to another part of your life. And I think that that's something that all of us can do, and it's really a useful skill.
Totally. Don't silo your experiences, right? Just
Right.
let them permeate. It's like groundwater. Sink it, flow it, spread it. Like let it go throughout your body. Well, we're honored to have you on here.
Thank you very much.
The trails love you. Can't wait
Thank
to
you.
see what you do next. Oh, I heard there's something that you want to do coming up that you mentioned to me, right? What's next? for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like as I evolve as an athlete, like there's more and more challenges that I want to undertake. Like this year, we were talking, I did the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, and to like kind of make that a little bit more special, since I'd already done that once, I added 3 marathons at the end to set like a 10-day world
Cherry
record.
on top.
Yeah, and it was something like, oh man, I thought that would be so cool. And then I took those 10 marathons in 10 days and I did a really cool project where I ran across Israel. So I ran the Israeli National Trail, which is 1,000 kilometers, like 630 miles or across Israel, like seeing the community, like the trail running community there, which was really impactful, but also just the landscape and the dynamic and all the history that's involved with that country.
I think like running those ancient trails, right? There's a lot of these old trackers from indigenous different societies around the world say once you've run and walked on land, for the people that know how to track and can tell, your energy and those tracks are forever there. So it's like really kind of like a really special, sacred, almost pilgrimage, running through these special places. So I think that's beautiful.
Running across Israel was life-changing for me in so many ways. It was like a complete evolution of me as an athlete. Like it tested me in ways that I didn't know, that I went to depths that I didn't think were possible, and came and had, the other side of that too.
It's a theme. You just keep evolving and keep pushing. Just like,
one of my next things, like in 2020, one of my big projects is I want to run across the U.S. and I'm trying to figure out, what route to do and like, how I want to make that happen, with support and that kind of stuff. And like, so how does all that tie together?
To do it in the fastest time, or are you trying to go for a record, or you just want to?
I think the fastest time is pretty stout. It's my friend Pete Kospelich, and he averaged like 70 miles a day, which is about, when I ran across Israel, I was averaging around 60 miles a day. And so like, I just know what that looks like. And that was only for 10 days and he did it 42 days. But like, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, if there's a record out there, then, why not try for that? And if you end up short, then you know what you need to do next time. And so like, yeah, I think that it would be interesting to see, just how close I could get to that if I could. And then, kind of like, the thing for me is like I'd like to try to do it under 50 days. I feel like even if you weren't 42 days, but we're before 50 days, that's still pretty badass.
It's like Pony Express by foot. Well,
yeah.
We'll keep an eye on what you're up to, and like let's make America run again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Guys, I told you, Michael is amazing. He really, grit and resilience just oozes out of this guy, and you hear it. I've been around him. I told you, if you go back into the archives and you check out that old interview I did with him when we had the Spartan Cruise, it's an unbelievable story. But he's running on the treadmill. He wants to set the 50K world record. Turns out he misses it by a minute. 6 hours later, we see each other on the ship, and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm distraught. It turns out I missed it by a minute." I said, "You know what you got to do, right?" He said, "What?" I said, "You got to do it again right now." He suits up, gets on the treadmill, and wins the record. So here's a guy that's got these attributes we talk so much about during the containment: the grit, the resilience, the tenacity. And if you don't think you need those attributes, I think you need to think again, right? Look, take a look at these nurses and these doctors and these frontline workers, the uniformed services. My sister-in-law is an emergency doctor. She's in there battling it out every day. Then she's got to come home. She's got to go into the garage, completely take all her stuff out, wash down, make sure she doesn't bring anything into the house where she's got 4 children, right? The frontline workers have it worse. They are taking bullets for us. So for the last 20 years, as we're building Spartan, and we're telling everybody, you got to build grit. You got to build resistance. You got to change your frame of reference. You got to have tenacity. And everybody's saying, for what? I don't understand, Joe. You're crazy. Why would we crawl under barbed wire? Why would we purposely go do hard things? Why would we carry sandbags? This is why. Because shit happens. So guys like Michael, I mean, tell me the truth. Guys like Michael, these are people you want to be around. These are people you want in your foxhole when shit happens. So the point is, and the good news is, you can develop these attributes. We all have them deep inside. They're part of our tool set as human beings. But we got to bring them out. We got to bubble them up to the surface. We have it too easy. We're learning helplessness. That's why we bring you this podcast each and every week, sometimes every day. So make sure you subscribe. If you don't subscribe, we can't help you. Make sure you tell your friends. Make sure you tune in. Because if we can give you a little nudge, if we can give you a little taste through a video or through an audio, that maybe gets you waking up early, maybe get you doing some burpees. Who knows? You might not beat Michael Wardian, but if you go out and you do something hard today, the military says you got to do something hard every day. Spartan says you got to do something hard every day. Well, you're not only going to change your life, you're not only going to make me smile, but you're going to start to change lives around you. So subscribe, comment, tell me the hard things you're doing. Comment below, tell me the hard things you're doing. I'll see you next episode.